Hello and welcome to, I believe this is day 8. It's day 8 of OkayCon 2020, the free virtual summit that I am bringing you to sort of help through the craziness of the pandemic and the coronavirus and the social distancing. Today, I'm very, very excited and happy to be bringing a returning champion to the show. We are here with Raeshal Solomon. You can go back and listen to her in episode 215 of We Turned Out Okay, the podcast. It was one of my very favorite conversations that I've ever had. It started to be like when we started talking, Raeshal, I thought it was going to be straightforward money, kids, getting out of debt, teaching kids not to be in debt, and it just became so much more because we have a chronic illness. Not that we have the same chronic illness, but we have that in common. Living with that is so different. And then you have such great ideas and such an incredible story of climbing out from under a mountain of debt yourself. So very, very glad to welcome you to the show. Thank you for being here, Raeshal Solomon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for that wonderful introduction.
Of course. It's well deserved.
So excited. I'm excited to be here again. Thank you for asking me to come back to help with this summit. I think with everything going on right now, this is just an important thing that you're doing, and I'm appreciated to be a part of it.
Oh, good. Well, that makes me feel really, really good. And I where are my manners? I forgot to say, everybody, Raeshal Solomon writes books for kids that have to do with money, and you can find them at mylittlebanker.com. And that's expanded. There's a new part of that website, which I just noticed when I went there today, which is you've now got a podcast. But last time we spoke, I don't think you had the podcast yet. So can you share a little bit about that? Oh, have we got connectivity problems? We might.
I do.
I'm having trouble hearing.
Okay, is that better?
It is. Oh my gosh, yes. Cool.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't know what we will edit out and what we will keep in. I mean, this is just life these days. So but what I was basically trying to share about, and what I hope was heard, was you have mylittlebanker.com, and on that episode, or on that website now, you've got a podcast, and I would love it if you'd share a little bit about the podcast.
Yes. So back in November, I created the podcast called Podcast Kids, where I teach financial lessons pretty much to parents on how to teach your kids about money. But I actually bring kids into the conversation. So I'm actually talking to kids about money, or you get to hear me teach my kids about certain financial topics. And the reason I did that is because while I was out speaking and stuff, people always say, well, that sounds good, but how do you do it? So I wanted to give people a way, they can listen and be like, oh, that's how she does it. It's really simple. It's really to the point. So that's kind of the birth of the podcast. So I think I just posted like the 9th episode. So we're very, very new.
Wow. I feel like that's the fun part of a podcast. I mean, like, not that it's not fun where I am now, but it's unfolding for you. Like it's a new thing that is you have yet to see like the direction, that it will kind of end up going in some ways. And it's just so much fun to watch a podcast grow. And I feel like episode 9 is such a fun place to be. I hope you find that too. Lots of possibilities.
Yes. Like I find myself pondering, like you said, where will it go? Because right now I'm doing it with the kids. Will it always be me and the kids, or will they want to do their own thing? You know what I mean? So It's like, will I eventually get other people's kids involved and that kind of stuff? So it's like exciting and new, and it kind of has like a life of its own almost.
Yes. Yeah. And I did find that to be true for We Turned Out Okay, which I had these ideas when we got started that we would have these particular special kinds of episodes, and like everything would be in this one format. And that went out the window real soon. And I've always tried to keep a format of some sort. And then I was very excited about the 2020 format, and that is completely out the window, because I think it's so important to bring people these kinds of conversations that are going to help through coronavirus, through the pandemic. And I mean, what we're learning, we're speaking now on April the 17th.
Yes.
And what we're learning is that we could be doing the things that we're doing now, like into sort of the summer and maybe beyond. And it's just we could be hunkering down for quite a while. And so I think the whole focus of the podcast had to change from like, here are some things that you might be interested in, to like, here are some things that are going to help you get through this day.
Right.
So, and I'm really glad of that. I like being useful, and I like feeling like I can change on a dime. I like owning this. You know what I mean? I get to do whatever I want with it. So,
Right.
So speaking of things like the pandemic, how are you and your family? How are you guys all doing?
Actually, I feel like excited and blessed because no one that I know directly has been sick. So none of my direct family, none of my cousins or aunts or uncles or anybody that I know directly has been sick. Now, I do have friends who have family members that have been sick with the virus, but no one that, is in my family. So I feel really blessed about that, and I'm really excited. You know what I mean? Like, it's humbling, to say
Yeah.
the least. It's very humbling.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if you find this, but I've been finding I've had to walk a real fine line between like feeling thankful that the people that I love are hanging in there, and then also like, if I'll sometimes I'll have a happy moment or I'll laugh or something, and then I'll just think like, wait a minute, there's people out there getting sick. Like, you can't laugh
Yeah.
about things. You can't enjoy
Yeah.
stuff, right? And
Yeah.
I have found that to be one of the most challenging things, is to keep up my spirits and not wallow in the very bad news. Even when, like, as just like with you, I've now got friends and family who have people who are getting sick, and some haven't recovered, which is incredibly tragic and horrible. And it's I think our challenge is to sort of keep creating, keep on an even keel, keep our children, feeling positive and not stressing out for their sake as well. And as you say, I do feel very blessed, you know.
Right. Um,
And
Yeah,
where are
I
you
felt like
located? Oh, sorry.
I'm in Charlotte. I'm in North Carolina.
No, that's what I thought. I was going to guess, but I was afraid to be wrong.
Yeah, but my family's kind of like spread all out. So I'm constantly checking on people in different states as well. So,
Yeah. And same here. I mean, we've been doing so much by Zoom calls, and I got to have an extended family, my mother's extended family, sort of Easter Zoom call with people in Colorado and Arizona and Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and Toronto, Canada, and Montreal, Canada. Like, everybody is sort of all over both countries. And it was really interesting to hear how officials are sort of implementing things in different places. So I heard about things on that call on Easter Sunday that were, for example, one of our relatives in Canada was saying that they had now lined up the grocery store so that you go one way back and forth through the aisles. And then that was the week my husband went to our grocery store, and that was the very first week that we'd seen that here. So it's just,
yeah, we have that here too now, where you go in, you can only go in through one door, and then you have to go the aisles a certain way, and then you can't just drift around how you normally would in a grocery store.
yeah.
And then you have to go out like the opposite door, and I think it's helping them maybe keep count and making sure that a certain amount of people are in the store at a certain amount of time or whatever. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it could be helping.
I hope it is. I mean, I don't know enough about it to to really offer any kind of opinion. I do know that my husband and I read this really interesting article in the paper in the Boston Globe, which is the paper of record. So a few weeks ago, I had on Devorah Heitner. She's a kids and media specialist, and I said to her, like, how how should we think about getting our news? And she said, go to the paper of record. And I was like,
Oh,
okay, that's a good idea. So they had an interesting article that sort of projected out if we do a certain percent of social distancing for a certain amount of time, like it had these different graphs of graphical representations of like, what would it look like if we did 20% social distancing, which I don't even know what that is, versus 60 versus 80 versus, and the one that looked to us to have the least, to be the least damaging was not the most crushing social distancing. It was like 20% or something like that, was the one that would not tax the resources that we have way out into the future. So a lot of the big, the big hugest efforts of social distancing, the projections were that like sort of in January or February of next year, there would be a massive spike in cases because we had been tamping them down for so long. And so it's like, I think everybody is wondering now, all the infectious diseases specialists and people like that, epidemiologists, are trying to figure out, how long-term do we make this and how strict do we make it? So,
right, right.
but that's
I
not what I know anything about. Sorry.
Me either. Me either. Actually, I've been getting my news through comedians. So, like the Daily Show. Like I love Trevor Noah because he like gives you the facts and gives you clips from real news, but then he adds in a joke to make it feel not so sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was talking to my sister about that. I was like, I can't just watch regular news anymore. Now I'm just watching jokes. So I was like, I get like 10 to 6 minute bites of news, which keeps me informed, but I'm not like overwhelmed by it.
Yes. And especially if there's a joke attached at the end of it to make you feel like, it's not so horrible, basically.
Right.
I love Trevor Noah. Did you ever read his book, Born a Crime?
I have not. I watched him. He did a few interviews, and I watched like one of them was like almost 2 hours long of him answering questions and reading clips out of the book. But yeah, I think I'm gonna get that book.
Oh, it's so good. I think it would be such good reading for right now because I don't know about you, but I've been drawn to stories that are about somebody overcoming something, um, but especially with humor. I mean, there were parts of this book where I was like wetting my pants laughing, and it's the most horrible situation that you can imagine being in. You know what I mean? But he tells these stories, and you're like, wow. So that's a great one. So the Daily Show. I'm going to link to these in the video form. It may not be just below. Well, it might be. It depends on where you see it. But definitely, when this is up on the podcast, the notes will be right below it. So I want to make sure that I also link to Born a Crime. And then I want to share actually where I've been getting my news, which is our town. I live in Bellingham, Massachusetts, and every day the town officials are doing an emergency meeting. And they're all appropriately socially distanced. So there's a meeting room in the town hall, and like, so there's this big long conference table. There's the deputy police chief is there, the town administrator is there, and then way over there is like the health inspector, and they have the public health nurse calls in. She zooms every day, and we the people who live here can ask questions.
Oh,
And so they always start with a sort of, these are the amount of cases we've seen in Bellingham, in the US, in Massachusetts. These are the amount of fatalities, but then they also do, these are the amount of recovered people. So that you're getting a sense that it's we're moving forward with this. They
right.
often bring on guests. It's really amazing. And I think even if you didn't live in the town of Bellingham, it might be worthwhile because they put it on YouTube so you can subscribe to it. And I find that it is very positive. I mean, these are people in my town answering questions for people in my town, and like they bring on the grocery store managers so that we can talk about what's happening in the stores. And anyway, really, really cool. So if you are watching this and you want a couple of news sources, we've got the Daily Show, we've got the Bellingham emergency meetings, Bellingham, Massachusetts emergency meetings, and I think that's a good place to start. So in thinking about money, like money and this situation, I would love to, if we can, kind of jump into that. What are people asking you right now?
So I actually got a few questions about what do I do with my stimulus check.
Oh, yeah.
because people, a lot of people have gotten theirs, and then a lot of people haven't gotten theirs. And so there was a lot of confusion at first as to when. And I think they're starting to do better reporting on when people can, expect their checks if they haven't already gotten them. But I've gotten a lot of questions about what should I do with my stimulus check. And that really just depended on each person and their what their financial situation was at that moment. So I can give you some of the different notes that I had wrote for this,
Sure.
and then I'll cover the stimulus in that.
Awesome.
So I think my first and most important tip is to know that money is an emotional and financial topic. And right now, people shouldn't worry as much about the money, because I know there are people out there like, I lost my job. I don't know what I'm going to do about my bills. And they're stressed out and they're panicking. And that emotion can affect your health, which with this pandemic, everyone needs to be positive and as uplifting as they can so that their stress levels won't go up to a point where they get sick, because you don't want to go to anybody's hospital right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's very important to, when you feel yourself going down that rabbit hole of, I don't know what I'm going to do about my finances, try to find a way to get out of it. Even if you just have to go completely do something, turn on some music and dance and be silly, go ask a kid, one of your kids or your spouse for a hug or something. Just bounce out of the emotional part of it. Because if you can get out of the emotional part of it, then you can get to critical thinking and you can start doing logic. So that's the first part. I think the first part is, trying to control your emotions around the topic of finances right now.
Oh, I
And I know
love
it's
that.
hard. That's a big ask. That's a really big ask right now.
Yes.
The next thing is do personal research. So do research about your current finances. Who do you owe? How much do you owe them? What is your, mortgage company? Is your mortgage company going to let you put your mortgage on hold? Is your rent company going to let you pause your rent? Is your light company, can you call your light company or your water company or your gas company, all of those type of bills? Can you call them and put all of this stuff on pause? This is specifically for people who have lost their job or who've underemployed. So like, let's say you're in a household of two and one person lost their job. So you have a little money, but you don't have as much as you used to having. Then what bills can you get away with only paying maybe a partial payment? Or who will put everything on hold for you until we figure out this virus?
And I would love to jump in there for a minute because I'm really, really glad you brought that up. I don't know if I'm not a money person, right? So I don't know as much about it as you do. But one thing that I read that had me panicking a little bit on behalf of people who are in that situation is mortgages specifically. It's what I've been hearing is that some mortgage companies are saying, sure, we'll pause this, but then you owe it all at the end of that 3 months or something like that. So you're in a situation where now you've got like a $5,000 thing that you're supposed to come up with after having been able to pause it. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, actually, that's why I said do personal research, because some mortgage companies are doing that and some aren't. So that needs to be on your list. Like, okay, so my mortgage company is going to pause it, but I have to come up with $5,000. I don't necessarily want them to pause it. You know
Not
what I
that
mean? Like,
one.
that wouldn't be one that I would want them to pause. Maybe my car payment, though, maybe they'll push it back to the end of the loan. So then that may be 2 or 3, car payments worth of money that you can use to help with the mortgage.
Oh, I
So
love it.
that's when it becomes a strategy thing. But the first thing you have to do is talk to the people and ask them what are their COVID-19, requirements, responses. Like, if they say, yes, we'll pause it. Okay, are you going to pause it and put it back at the end of the loan? or do you expect a $5,000 lump sum payment in 2 or 3 months?
Yeah,
You know what I
yes.
mean?
So
So
taking the emotion out of it, I can see how that's so important. So the other day, I was having a particularly bad day. I had, I guess for background, one of our close relatives who doesn't live with us but is a close relative has been ill and housebound for months and is not getting the medication that she needs. And then when the medication comes through, we're finding out it's like 200 and something dollars a pill. I mean, so there's I have this real emotional fury about those kinds of things. And we decided it would be a good idea for me as an asthmatic to have some, up to date medications. And so I went the other day, called this in, went and picked it up. And I get to the drive-through window, and the poor woman who's there says to me, "Are you aware of the copay for this one particular medicine?" And I started tearing up immediately. I said, "I'm no." And I said, "What is it?" And she said, "It's $70." And I like burst into tears. And when I thought of it later, I realized, I mean, like, we're going to be okay to pay that.
Right.
But I think it was so emotional because just the fury, like, what if we weren't okay and now I'm doing without medicine, and oh
Right.
my goodness. If I had, as I was driving home, I thought, what I should have done was not gotten it. I should have called my doctor. Like,
Yep.
and were there any other options? Are there any other generic, anything
Yep.
like that? And I just want to really emphasize that point of, when we are emotional, we are not thinking clearly. And we will
Exactly.
come to that point where we can think clearly. We just have to give ourselves the
Mhm.
kind of grace to get there, right?
Right, exactly. And that's why the emotion part was the first tip. It was like one of the last ones I wrote down, but I knew that one was going to affect how you think and process all the rest of the information.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I have co-pays for some of my medicines that's like $3,000 and $4,000. And so I I don't get that. I was like, yeah, doctor, we're not getting that. Find me something else. And so what they do is, a lot of people don't know this, but if you feel like the copay is too high for you, you can talk to your doctors. The doctors talk to the reps. The reps find programs that will pay your copay, because if the copay is 2 to 5,000, the prescription itself is probably like 20,000.
Yeah.
So they're going to waive 2 to 5,000 to get 15,000 from your insurance company. You see what I'm saying? So,
Yes.
but people don't think about it like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God, that's absolutely brilliant. So okay, so now we've got the emotion out of it. We've done our research. What's next?
Okay, so next you can cancel some stuff. I know people hate hearing this part,
Yeah.
but you can't really go out to eat right now. So that one is a budget line. If restaurants is a budget line right now on your budget, you need to deflate that by like 90%, whatever that number is. You need to erase it and change it to like 10%, because you can't go sit down right now in a restaurant anyway. So,
Yep.
eat at home. I'm not going to say cancel Netflix, because my family is living off of Netflix right now. They are.
Yep.
But we don't have cable. But okay, so do you need 6,000 channels right now when all of them are talking about coronavirus? Can we live off of 100 channels instead? You know what I mean? So you don't have to necessarily cancel all of it. Can you lower it? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Can you change your phone plan? Can you refinance or not refinance, but can you change your car insurance, or is there anywhere where you can find money right now,
Oh, that's
other,
brilliant. Yeah.
other than getting a job? I mean, getting more income. So like, can you get an online job right now as a customer service person? Is that something you can do? Can you find little side jobs where you don't have to leave your house? Can you do voiceovers? As podcasters, we're used to talking anyway. So
Yep. Yeah. I think there's an opportunity for a lot of learning here about other ways. And I say this, as I know, as do you. I hope I think what I want is for people to know that like we're worrying about this stuff too. My husband just started a job yesterday.
Yeah.
He was unemployed. He was laid off in January, and so coming into this, we've been biting our nails a little bit and trying to figure out what to do. And through it all, I've been so proud of him because he didn't give up. And
Um,
he did find a job that he is now doing at home from home. He hasn't even met his new coworkers yet in person. Um, I
right.
think if finding stuff that you can cancel, and we've certainly gone that route as well, is super super important. And then just what you say about what other opportunities does this open up for you, because you never know, you just never know.
Right. Right. I mean, like for me, the 2000, this is completely different, but the 2008 bubble bursting, losing job stuff kind of pushed me forward into the career that I have now, because that bubble bursting is what put me in a financial situation that got me to where I was frustrated and done by 2012. So you never know what you might stumble onto right now in 2020 with this COVID stuff that will eventually, turn out to be something that's a blessing later. You just never know what breadcrumb you might get from here that could turn into something much bigger in the future.
Yeah, yeah. One of the sort of expressions I've been living by lately, it was in my inspirational calendar a couple of months ago, was difficult roads often lead to wonderful destinations or beautiful destinations. And I just think that's so important to remember. Most of us are going to come through this absolutely healthy. Most of us, even if the best minds that I'm understanding, listening to, they are saying we're probably all going to get this at some point. Eventually, most of us are going to have gotten coronavirus, COVID-19, and but most of us are also going to recover from it. So what can we learn? What can we do to kind of make things better, in the future get us ready for the next round, that kind of thing. So,
Right.
yeah.
So that kind of brings me to the stimulus.
Oh, cool.
Now.
Yep.
so so now that we've figured out what stuff we can cancel and we've made those calls, we've done some research, we've checked our emotions. Now we can actually make adjustments to our budget. So for some people, you don't have a budget. Let's just be honest. You don't write down every month where your money goes. For most people,
Yep.
you don't write down where your money goes. You don't manage it. But it's time to change that.
Yep.
So you need to write these numbers down, even if you're only gonna do it for the next month or two, just so everything you do is intentional.
Yes.
Because when you get your stimulus check, you have to be able to say, okay, so my mortgage is one of those places where I don't want to get behind because they're going to make me pay on some. So maybe I need to take my stimulus check and put it towards the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, but you won't know that. You won't know that information if you don't write everything down and you don't take notes. If you don't have a clear understanding of what's coming in and what's going out.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I really want to jump in here because this was us. I think right before I talked to you last time. So that was, I don't know. I'm trying to think if it was episode 215. That has to be at least 2 years ago. I mean, so it's and what we had done in the months before that. The reason, in fact, I wanted to have a money expert on the show or do investigate money and families
Right.
was because we had just come through this incredible. We had totally been like not looking, just sort of like, okay, it's this horrible thing. We don't even want to deal with it. And we found a financial planner. The first thing we did was we thought, this isn't the way to do this. We can't be ostriches. We can't have our heads in the sand. We've got to really think about this.
Right.
And so we found a financial planner, a financial advisor who was so helpful. And then I thought, okay, now I need to be helping the people that I serve. So,
Right.
so I am, if you are listening or watching, I am one of those people who was just a few years ago completely frightened about money and sort of unable to get out of that. And until we got to the point where we said, okay, we have to We have to hold hands and jump here. So making adjustments to your budget can mean, using that stimulus for that. So this is another question I have about the stimulus itself. I have heard that it is something that's going to come out of our taxes next year or something. Can you explain that a little bit? I'm really glad you're nodding.
Yes. Okay. So if you actually read the stimulus bill, after they tell you the amount that you're going to get and, the 12 or the 5 per child, but that's only if the child's 16 or younger, because really if you're 17, you don't qualify for it. So there's a lot of red tape in that part. At the bottom, it's going to count as a pre-tax payment. So let's say you normally would get a tax refund of $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you already owe $1,200 for your stimulus check, and they're going to subtract that. So your refund would be $0. So you're going to start off with a bill, and then they'll calculate in all your tax information to see if you qualify for a refund next year.
Okay.
So most people don't realize that part is in there. It's in the bill.
Yeah, and that we thought. I mean, we know the idea here is that you spend it so that we're keeping the economy going. But what if we end up owing next year for Ben, for me, for our 15-year-old who's not 16?
That's my fear. My fear is that next year I'm going to end up owing, because this year I was one of those borderline people where I got a refund, but it wasn't even enough to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So next year, then it's what strategies do I have to do now? Do I need to pay a little extra in my quarterlies? Because we're entrepreneurs, so we have quarterlies. But when you go back to work, do you have them take out an extra $25
to make up for it?
Right, to offset what might happen in the future.
That's a very good idea. I love that. It's definitely some things to think. Even with this, if we let emotion get into it, we're not thinking clearly enough to even say, "Hey, what if we just put a little bit more of a deduction in there for this in our paychecks?" That's a brilliant idea. Wow. Okay, so we've really got a very powerful plan here. Is what you've given us. Is there any more to it?
There's a little bit more. There's just a tinge. I'm almost done.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Keep going.
Okay, so cancel all your auto drafts out of your bank. So if your trash comes out of your account every 3 months and your water comes out every month, and if it's anything you can cancel that's an auto draft, you can't stop the auto draft for Netflix, but anything where you can and not actually stop the subscription or stop whatever it is. My car payments come out automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just so I don't pay it on the wrong date. But so this is important for people. If you've lost your job and, all you have is whatever last check you got, you might have your stimulus coming. You're waiting on your unemployment because they've not processed that yet because they're backed up. You don't need your bank account to get overdrafted on top of that.
Yes.
And so cancel all your auto drafts for now. You can restart them later after, you're getting back to a normal income when you go back to work or when you get a new job or whatever. But for now, cancel it and then control it yourself. So when the money is actually in your account and you can pay stuff.
Oh, I love that. It's so brilliant.
Yeah, because you don't want overdraft fees, because those fees pile up really quickly. 2, the last thing you need right now is for your bank account to close due to overusage and overdrafts, because, banks are about to start tightening up left and right while they're trying to figure out what the government's going to do about COVID.
Yes. Wow.
So, and if your account closes, it makes it really hard to open another account somewhere else. So I would stop all of those auto drafts and I would contact my bank about overdraft protection. Normally, I don't get overdraft protection because I lock it. So if I try to swipe my card and I got $10 in there and I try to swipe for $11, then my card gets declined. And I like it like that because I don't want to spend money I don't have. But for some people, getting the overdraft protection might be a strategy. You might be able, because some banks will let you, they'll pay all the way up to like $500, but then you
Wow.
have to pay that. But if you like, let's say you like, okay, I need to pay my mortgage, but I'm $380 short. And you know your bank will pay $500 because you have that overdraft protection policy. Then you can go ahead and pay it. And then when you get the next piece of income that you know for a fact is coming for sure, you know, you're not just going to defraud the bank. We're not defrauding the
No,
bank.
that's not what this is about. Yes.
Right. But if you got to pay your mortgage let's say you have to pay your mortgage today because it's the last day and then you're in your late and then the credit gets messed up and you know your stimulus check is coming next week, then pay your rent and pay your stimulus check. I mean, get your stimulus check and pay your bank the $39 late fee or $18 late fee or whatever it is.
So
But
brilliant.
yeah. So yeah.
So
These are all things I've learned from life, from real life.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more just before I've got a question that has to do with money and kids, but just before we kind of move on, and provided that you're done with your notes as well, because I don't want to stop you if you've got more, but
No, that was it.
Okay. The idea of you have said, I love not having overdraft protection because it stops me from overspending. Is that basically?
Yeah.
Could we just talk a little bit about, because I think I understand overdraft protection now. And, you know, we're not going to defraud the bank. Like, that's not what this is about. But if you need that. So what do you feel like are the advantages of, like, why do you like not having it? You know, could you just talk a little bit more about that?
Okay. So for me, when I started, a banker came to me. So when I was way back in the back, you know, learning my money and stuff, a banker came to me and he was like, Miss Solomon, do you realize you've paid $600 this year in overdraft fees? And I was like, I have. I was like, I had no clue. He was like, he said it real clever and funny. He was like, we don't mind taking your money, but I don't know if that's helping you or hurting you financially. And so ever since then, after he told me that, and I was like, okay, whatever. So I went back and I did my own math, and he was right. It was like, it was a little bit more than 600. It was like 620 or 630, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, what could I have done with that $600? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was but when you do it, they ask you when you open your account with a new card or when you get a new card, do you want us to be able to overdraft this account? And you just say yes or no. And most people don't think nothing else about it. So I was like, okay, so what happens if I overdraft? They're like, well, we charge you a fee and they tell you how much the fee is. They tell you how much you can overdraft your account by. And I was like, okay, so what if I have this where I don't want you to overdraft my account ever? And they was like, so my bank now, the bank I have now, I cannot overdraft my account ever by using a card. And if something does overdraft my account, they have to pay me back the fee because they were not supposed to authorize that.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. But you won't know that if you don't ask the questions.
You don't ask those questions.
So you have to ask. Yeah, you have to ask those questions.
Yeah, and it gets right back into all of what we're talking about, you know, taking the emotion out of it. And because you have to start there. There's so much about what you talk about on a daily basis that even now is making my stomach a little bit like, you know, but it's so important to be able to and to be honest, like, I think a lot of viewers, a lot of people listening to this, they have those feelings about raising kids, which of course is something that I know about intimately, right? This is what my master's degree is in. And so I think we all have our strengths. We all have our the things that we're really good at and the things that light us up and the things that make us a little bit frightened. But to be honest, having learned about money now I'm having such a good time in general, not right now, not while we're going through this, but in
Right.
general, I found it absolutely fascinating to watch what the market does and like see why. And when my husband and I have conversations about money, they don't devolve into fighting because we're on the same page. We're working towards the same goals. And I mean, it's the management of money, even with a layoff, even with a little bit of uncertainty. We have found personally from personal experience is still an interesting thing that you can look at without emotion and move forward on.
Right. Yeah. It's very interesting. There's always moving parts, but I think that's what keeps me interested in it. There's
Yeah.
always more to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. You can always go, oh yeah. I certainly find that with kids. I mean, there's always something to learn. So
Always.
in thinking, um, in thinking about kids and money, is this the coronavirus pandemic of 2020? Is this a good opportunity to be teaching kids about money?
Yeah. Oh, did you hear episode 8 of my podcast? Actually, I lay out 12 financial lessons to teaching your kids about money, and
I love it.
is podcast podcast kids episode 8. And yeah, so stockpiling was one of the topics because normally most families don't stockpile. I mean, unless you're an extreme couponer or something, for the most part, you buy just what you need. But there's a lot of families buying a little extra just in case. And so that was an example. Health insurance was an example of one thing you could be teaching your kids. Couponing, like, how do we buy this extra tissue and not kill our budget?
Hmm.
That was one. Budgeting was one. So yeah, I named 12 different things. Even the stock market and a recession and government programs was one that I mentioned. Income inequality was one I mentioned. That's a heavy topic, but you know, even though there's coronavirus killing people, there's some people that still have to work out of the house. So you can make it not as heavy. But you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, coronavirus, every is a real life place where you can teach your kids financial lessons.
Yeah.
Working from home, because a lot of kids are used to their parents going to work every day. They're not used to them being at home. They didn't even know that working from home was an option. So now that's a whole new, place where you can teach them about, there are people that work from home every day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. Is there any of those 12? Is there any one that comes to mind as something to kind of finish out our conversation with today? Like talking to kids about money in any of those ways?
I think out of those 12, I don't know which one I think I would pick. I think what I would say though is explain coronavirus to your kids in a way that they can understand.
Mm-hmm.
And then allow them to know that it's not just affecting their lives, it's affecting everybody's lives on the planet. Because I think right now we need the feeling of being united, even though we're separated.
Yeah. And I would add to that. I bet you do talk about this is how can they help? Can like helping kids find a way to be helpful? Like, so for example, for a housebound grandparent or something,
Oh yeah. Well, we do little random stuff. Like we wrote my son drew a card for his grandpa, and then we mailed it to his grandpa.
Oh.
So just like little inspirational, little things like that. We do video calls, and he does his little silly faces and stuff. And so we're like, I think he understands what we're trying to do as far as giving, but it'll be a conversation we'll have in the future, hopefully. And he'll be like, Ma, you remember when? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think I love that you bring up that point about everyone is going through this and we need to be united because it goes beyond money. I mean, I think there can be a lot of interesting financial type conversations and subjects that would come from that. But and in fact, the one that popped into my mind was I have a college age kid who lives with us. My son lives with us, and um, he was telling me the other day about a sort of Instacart scam kind of a thing, like not a scam, but you were talking about income inequality. So in a parent now, I haven't. This is all secondhand, but the report that I heard was this: in New York City, where there are sort of wealthy people with means who want Instacart, people doing Instacart. So I only just learned this myself, but Instacart apparently is a thing where you put in you make an account, you put in your groceries list, and then when the person goes shopping for you,
Mm-hmm.
they like start a chat with you. So you can adjust things as you go or whatever. But what these sort of people are doing in New York is they are giving, you can tip beforehand. So they'll give like a $50 tip. So the
Right.
Instacart person who, I mean, why, if you're doing something like that, it's because you really need the money, right? You're
Right.
trying to make some dough, putting yourself on the line to do it. So they
Right.
give you see a $50 tip, you go, "Oh my God, I can't wait. I'm gonna do this one right now." Well, apparently, an hour after the order is complete and delivered, the person who ordered it can edit the tip. And so what they're doing is I'm right. Yes. And what they're doing is they are giving a $50 tip. The person goes through, does their job, drops off the groceries, and then they get no tip. I mean, like I'm tearing up thinking about it now. Can you imagine?
Wow.
And so what my son was trying to help me, because I was like appalled. I was like, I can't believe that anyone would be so horrible as to do that.
Right.
Um, and but then he said, okay, so what you have to do is you have to focus on these other people who are using Instacart and they are giving like huge tips and they are leaving them there because they know these people are putting themselves in line. I thought, okay, that's good. So if you've got the means, definitely do good with it.
Right. 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 Yeah. And that was the last one, was to help others if you can.
Oh, I love that.
Actually, I wrote that, but I guess I must have skipped it. But for me, it was like at the after the first week of the month, I cried because all my bills were paid on time, and I felt guilty. I felt so guilty, and so I was like, "Why are you crying? Because you're blessed. Like, why are you crying? All your bills are paid." And I don't know, I just felt wrong in some way. And I'm like, why? And so then it was like, okay, so what can I do to not feel wrong? And why do you think you feel wrong? And then it was just like, because I should help others. I should be helping others. Because I was like, okay, I still have money left for this month and I should help others. And so I found a couple different charities that are helping people, and I just gave. And it wasn't like, a staggering amount or anything. It was just like, yeah, I gave, and then I felt better. But now I'm like, I think I'm going to keep slowly giving, just here and there, nothing too much. Like, I did something, there's one where people are reading books every day to raise money for kids who don't have like much food to eat, right now, because they're
Hmm.
not getting much food or whatever from school. I did something for the mask, like the doctors and stuff needing masks. Um, and then there was like a local charity. So I did two nationals and one local charity that's just doing all kind of different things for people being affected by COVID. And I was like, okay, so that was a one-time thing because I felt bad, which is a bad reason to give. But I think my heart was in the right place. And so I was like, maybe I'll keep looking for other places where I can give. Not for April, but maybe in May when I, pay all my bills again, and then I'll So I make sure my house is okay and we have what we need, and then I'll go out and help others where I can.
Oh, I love that. I actually think that's really responsible because first of all, I mean, it may have been motivated from a sort of from a place of guilt, but that started something good, right?
Yeah,
So you're making sure that your bases are covered. No one is going to need to donate to you.
right.
And then
Right.
you're also helping others. And we've discovered up here that locally in our sort of little neck of the woods, that the need for people have like 1,000% more people are applying for food pantries for food
Hmm.
relief than
Right.
before the pandemic. People are lined up in their cars to to get things, and food pantries are sort of running out of food, and
Right.
they don't want you to give them food because there are these concerns about contamination and stuff like that. So what we're doing is giving a little bit as we can to a local food pantry. And I mean, it's the same. I think the more people that do that,
Right.
the
Right.
better off we're all going to be. Help others if you can. I think that's a really great place to finish up. Unless Raeshal, if you have something else that you wanted to finish up on, but if not, I think that's a great place to finish up.
No, no, I think that's perfect. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're good, help others.
Yeah. Yep. Well said. Well, I am so grateful to you, Raeshal Solomon of mylittle.banker.com for being with us today. It's meant just an incredible amount. Like we literally started talking about this on Tuesday and we're recording it on Friday. So I'm just so happy to be able to do this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me again. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep, yep, anytime. So this is going to make you a two-time returning champion, and I have a feeling that as we go on out here, it'll be more. So thank you so much for listening. I have been ending all of these with a huge thank you also to our producer, the man who has been my partner, not just in the podcast, not just producing, but in life, in money, in all things. He is the 22-time winner of the Husband of the Year award. His name is Benjamin Culp. I'm so grateful to him. And Raeshal and I are both super grateful to you for watching, for listening, and we will see you next time.